I was a terminally online conservative gamer, but when I visited Central America, I saw the devastating effects of capitalism firsthand. I realized I had to fight this system, and for the first time, I had a purpose. Since then, I've read thousands of pages of political theory. I've spent hundreds of hours building my community, and I've shared my lessons with over 100,000 followers. But it wasn't easy. It took me 4 years to unlearn the propaganda I was fed. So today I'm gonna help you make progress on your political journey twice as quickly by exposing 4 massive lies that you don't even know you believe. If you believe the 4th lie, you'll never escape the machine, so make sure to stick around. Lie number 1, posting is politics. The leftist content space is built on a lie, and this lie is not coming from conservative media or the CIA, it's coming from the creators themselves. Let me explain. When you're just starting out, the online left is awesome. It's fun and accessible, and it's reassuring to know that other people are seeing the same things you're seeing. The internet was probably your first introduction to leftist thought. The problem is that these videos can only get you so far before they start to slow down your progress. That's because in the attention economy, creators have to be different to get noticed, which makes every commentary-focused space a cesspool of call-outs and drama and hot takes. But it gets worse. You probably noticed that the online left will talk about the evils of the system all day long, but they never tell you what to do about it. That's because these creators need to keep you watching to make a living. So they all talk about politics in this ironically detached way that keeps you interested enough to passively consume their content, but never equips you to take action. If you want to break free from this lie, here's how. Literally pause the video right now and reach out to your local organization and ask them what you can do to get involved. Or if you don't have any organizations in your area, sign up for a time slot at the local food kitchen. If you don't have much time, just grab a bag from under your sink and go take a walk around your neighborhood and pick up trash from the side of the road. If you can commit yourself to making the world a better place right now, then you can watch the rest of the video. You have my respect. But 90% of you won't do it because you still believe the lie that politics is a spectator sport. None of the influencers you look up to will talk to you like this. They won't talk to you like an adult because they're perfectly happy to string you along video after video, and you're perfectly happy to keep consuming because it's comfortable. But if you don't break out of this fantasy, you will wake up one day and realize you spent your whole life following other people's drama and you have nothing to show for it. I know it's hard to put yourself out there and do the dirty work, but at some point you have to decide whether you'd rather live a comfortable life or a meaningful one. I don't know about you, but I was not born to watch Twitch streams. Lie number 2, fascists are irrational. It's convenient for us to believe that fascism was an exception, that it was just a mass delusion created by a few psychopaths. The reality is much worse. For our system, fascism is not a bug. It's a feature. Let me explain. Let's say, hypothetically, you were ruled by a party whose only real priority was enriching the 1% at the expense of everyone else.
The Fed loaned the banks $7.7 trillion.
Let's say, hypothetically, that this ruling class suppressed progressive movements at home and engaged in brutal violence abroad to maintain the flow of cheap labor and raw materials for their backers, all while claiming to be the party of decency.
I'm speaking.
Let's say, hypothetically, that because such a party could not promise to meaningfully improve people's lives, they were limited to running on a platform of preserving the status quo, in a time when their institutions had already lost public trust and the hypocrisy of the elites was on full display. Let's say, hypothetically, the people are angry. They know they're being lied to. They vote for a sledgehammer. Because this hypothetical party could not acknowledge the crisis, and because it would crush any alternatives, they'd know they were paving the way for right-wing populism, but they'd risk it every single time. Why? Because to them, it'd be preferable to anything that challenged the almighty dollar. If we label fascism a historical glitch and put it away on the shelf, then we don't have to grapple with the reality that drives millions of people to right-wing populism. Fascism was not a historical anomaly. Fascism is just capitalism in decline. From the perspective of the capitalist elites, fascism is a perfectly reasonable tool to deploy when democracy becomes inconvenient. What does this mean? It means that as long as there is capitalism, there will always be fascism lurking underneath it. And as long as we allow ourselves to be ruled by feckless liberals who refuse to challenge capitalism, right-wing populism will continue to have a dangerous appeal that those liberals will not be equipped to stand up to. So why does this matter? It matters because once we understand where fascism comes from, we understand how to fight it by building a left-wing populist alternative to take it on. If you're interested in building that alternative, then stick around. If not, you can go back to your cute little video essays. Line number 3, communism has never been tried. Communism has been tried, and it works. And no, I'm not talking about the Soviet Union or China or Rojava. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee that you experience this sort of communism every day. Let me explain. Basically, communism works under this principle: from each according to their ability, to each according according to their need. At first glance, it doesn't seem like our society is communist because it isn't. We make and distribute things based on profit, not on need. But if you look closer, you'll see that people behave like communists all the time, even if they claim to support capitalism. I'll explain with a story. A few years ago, a storm came through my neighborhood and knocked down a bunch of trees. When I came outside, I saw that a huge branch had fallen in my neighbor's yard. It was blocking his driveway, it was blocking the road, and it had smashed his car. So I got my saw and I went to help. But by the time I put my shoes on and got down there, something incredible had happened. The whole neighborhood had come out to help clear the road. The young men were hacking off branches, and the kids were dragging them away, and the old people were raking up sticks and leaves. But the most incredible thing was, we didn't stop when we cleared the road. We didn't want to. As we helped get the tree limb off the car and out of the driveway, the work became more like a block party. That day, I met some of my neighbors for the first time. It felt like we, the people, had finally taken matters into our own hands. And you could just see this pride on everyone's face. So how do we explain this? After all, the free market fundamentalists who run our society will tell you that people are purely self-interested. But my neighbors and I, we didn't do what we did for payment, and we didn't stop when we cleared the road. We simply saw that one of us was in need, and we helped out according to our abilities. But here's the thing, what I experienced wasn't unique. If you've ever offered someone directions on the street, helped someone change a flat tire, or been part of a family, you've experienced the same sort of everyday communism that I did. The truth is, what we call communism is just the baseline expectation of most social interactions. As long as people aren't actually like enemies, they can be expected to help each other out. And if you experience a crisis like the story I just told you, you'll often find that capitalism just isn't practical.
We're taking fire. Go get me some ammo.
That'll be $5.
I don't have cash.
Do you do Venmo?
No, but I have PayPal.
Of course, our institutions are so blinded by ideology that this everyday communism will never be studied. After all, for most of human history, private property didn't exist. Whatever you hunted or gathered was distributed to your tribe. Humans' only advantage is our ability to cooperate. Communism is human nature. The only question is, how do we scale it? You've probably never thought like this before, because the people in power have worked very hard to ensure that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. Think about that. They want any alternative to be unthinkable, and 99% of people will go right along with it. But once you realize that, as David Graeber put it, capitalism is just a really bad way of organizing communism, then you can start to think rationally about how society could be organized. And when you do that, your world starts to become three-dimensional again. Lie number 4. Nothing ever happens. The most dangerous lie that leftists believe, even if they wouldn't admit it to themselves, is this idea that nothing ever happens. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about this mindset where even though you care about the future of humanity, and you might think getting involved is a good thing in the abstract, you don't really believe that fundamental change is possible. But if you stop to think about it, you'd actually agree this idea doesn't make any sense. Like, just close your eyes and imagine how different the world was 100 years ago. Not just like technologically, but also socially and politically. Now imagine how different the world will be 100 years from now, whether we win or lose. This whole idea of, oh, nothing ever happens, it's not the truth. It's just your perception. So why do so many of us have this worldview? You think society is static because you are static. But the truth is, history is going to happen with or without you. Before I got involved, I used to think, oh, nothing ever happens. Things aren't really going to fundamentally change. You know, there's no chance. And now my union is preparing to negotiate a new contract, and my organization just successfully campaigned to raise the minimum wage in our state. Things are happening because we made them happen. So how do you break out of this worldview? The first step is to realize that you're suffering from something called decision fatigue. Basically, that means there are so many options that you don't know which to pick, and you end up getting stuck. You probably spend too much time on the internet, so you're constantly bombarded with all the world's tragedy, and it seems like you could never do anything to fix it. And the worst part is, you're right. If you're waiting for the perfect opportunity to change everything in one stroke, it's never gonna happen. If you want to break out of the nothing ever happens mindset, you have to lose your need to save the world and just get to work on whatever you can. I don't just prioritize taking action because it's the right thing to do. I promise you, actually getting involved will solve like 90% of your political anxiety. I understand this world is a big chessboard, and you, my friend, you're just a pawn. But if you get involved, then for the first time in your life, you will be moving yourself. And that's powerful. Your brain is wonderfully irrational, you know, and in the sense that, like, it'll give you the strength to keep going if it just has the hope that you're moving in the right direction. I want to say one last thing to you, man to man. because I think if you've made it this far, we're on the same wavelength. I get it. I'm a YouTube guy. Like, I have a script right here, you know, but beyond all the flashy edits, I'm just a regular guy. And I'm tired of sitting around while the world goes down the toilet. If you feel the same way, I'd love for you to join me on this journey. That's not me being like, oh, wow, like and subscribe. Like, I really do want to hear from you. A better world is possible.